The first scream didn't come from the elderly woman in the wheelchair. It came from her dog. It tore across the quiet lakeside park like a crack in the sky, sharp and desperate, the kind of sound that makes your stomach drop before your mind can catch up. People turned. Birds scattered. And on the bright green grass near the water, 3 well-dressed young men stood laughing while an old woman trembled in her wheelchair, her frail hands reaching helplessly toward the German shepherd writhing on its back. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in standing up when it matters most, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story, and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this deserve to be heard. Margaret Ellis was 82 years old. Her silver hair was pinned neatly back, her cardigan buttoned despite the warm afternoon air. She had once been a school librarian, the kind who remembered every child's favorite book and kept extra tissues in her desk for bad days. Now, arthritis had curled her fingers and confined her to a wheelchair, but it had never managed to shrink her spirit. Her dog, Ranger, had been her late husband's pride. A loyal German shepherd with intelligent brown eyes and a protective heart. After her husband passed, Ranger became her shadow, her guardian, and her only family in a world that had grown too fast and too loud. That afternoon, Margaret had rolled herself down to the lakeside park, a place filled with memories of picnics and laughter from decades past. Ranger trotted gently beside her, his leash loose, his ears alert. It was supposed to be peaceful. It was supposed to be simple. Then the black SUV arrived. 3 college-aged men stepped out, their designer sneakers bright against the grass. They were loud, confident in the careless way that comes from never being told no. Expensive watches flashed at their wrists. One of them noticed Margaret first. He smirked. The others followed his gaze. It began with mocking comments about her age, about the way her hands shook as she adjusted Ranger's collar. They circled her slowly, like predators bored and looking for amusement. Margaret tried to ignore them, her voice thin but steady as she asked them to leave her alone. That only seemed to encourage them. One of the young men kicked at the grass near Ranger's paws. Another clapped loudly by the dog's ear. Ranger barked, confused and defensive, positioning himself between the men and Margaret. He wasn't aggressive. He was afraid for her. That's when it escalated. A shove. A laugh. A hand grabbing the leash and yanking it hard. Ranger yelped as he was pulled off balance. Margaret cried out, her wheelchair rocking dangerously as she tried to lean forward and shield him. One of the young men pushed Ranger onto his back and held him there, taunting him while the others recorded on their phones, amused by the scene they were creating. Margaret's heart pounded so violently she thought it might burst. She reached out, but her arms weren't strong enough. Her voice broke as she begged them to stop. They mocked her pleas, calling her dramatic, telling her it was just a dog. But Ranger wasn't just a dog. He was the last piece of her life that still felt whole. Across the park, near the walking trail that curved around the lake, a man in camouflage had just finished his morning run. His posture was upright, disciplined. His face was calm in the way only someone who has faced real chaos can be calm. His name was Daniel Hayes. Most people would have seen only a man in military fatigues. Few would have guessed he had spent years as a Navy SEAL, trained to move toward danger when everyone else ran away. Daniel had been home for 3 months, trying to adjust to a civilian world that felt strangely fragile. Loud noises still made him tense. Crowds made him uneasy. But he had learned to breathe through it, to focus on the present. That day, the present shattered with a single cry. He heard Ranger's yelp. Daniel didn't think. He moved. Each step across the grass felt measured, controlled, but his eyes were locked on the scene ahead. He saw the wheelchair. He saw the old woman's trembling hands. He saw the 3 young men laughing over a helpless animal. Something inside him hardened, not with rage, but with clarity. By the time the young men noticed him, he was only a few yards away. Daniel's voice was low, steady, and carried the kind of authority that didn't need to shout. He told them to step back. They laughed at him at first, dismissing him as just another passerby trying to play hero. One of them made a sarcastic comment about his uniform, about weekend warriors. They had no idea who they were talking to. Daniel stepped closer. He didn't threaten them. He didn't raise a fist. He simply placed himself between them and Ranger, his body a wall of calm strength. He helped the dog to his feet, checking him quickly with experienced hands, making sure nothing was broken. Ranger, sensing protection, leaned into him. The energy shifted. The young men's laughter faltered as they realized this wasn't someone they could intimidate. Daniel's gaze held theirs, unwavering. He told them that what they were doing was assault on a vulnerable woman and on her service-trained companion. He told them he had already called the authorities. Whether he had or not didn't matter. His certainty made it real. For the first time, doubt flickered across their faces. Bystanders, who had been watching from a distance, began to step closer now that someone had taken the lead. Phones that once recorded for entertainment now recorded for evidence. The three young men suddenly looked smaller, their bravado dissolving under the weight of public scrutiny. One of them tried to laugh it off, but it came out thin. Another muttered that they were just joking. The third looked at the ground, as if seeing for the first time the elderly woman's tear-streaked face and the dog trembling beside her. When the police arrived, summoned by a witness who had quietly made the call, the situation was already under control. Statements were taken. The young men's parents were contacted. Consequences, real and unavoidable, began to unfold. But the true transformation happened in the quiet after the sirens faded. Daniel knelt beside Margaret, adjusting her blanket, speaking to her gently. Her hands were still shaking. Ranger rested his head on her lap, his breathing slow but steady. Daniel assured her that she was safe now, that she had done nothing wrong. He listened as she told him about her husband, about how Ranger had been trained to help her navigate curbs and doorways, how he had slept by her bed every night since she became widowed. Daniel didn't see a frail old woman. He saw resilience. He saw a life full of stories. He saw someone who deserved dignity. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. Daniel began visiting Margaret every Sunday. He would bring groceries, fix small things around her house, and take Ranger for longer walks than her arthritic hands could manage. What started as a moment of intervention turned into a friendship neither of them had known they needed. The three young men faced community service and mandatory counseling. At first, they were resentful. But part of their sentence required volunteering at a local animal shelter and a senior care center. It was there, confronted daily with abandoned animals and lonely residents, that the weight of their actions began to sink in. One afternoon, they saw Margaret again, this time smiling as Ranger demonstrated simple obedience tricks for the shelter staff. Shame washed over them. They approached her hesitantly and offered a sincere apology. Margaret, whose heart had endured more loss than they could imagine, surprised them. She accepted. Forgiveness did not erase what had happened, but it planted something new. A crack in their arrogance. A seed of empathy. Months later, the park by the lake felt peaceful again. Margaret rolled along the path, Ranger trotting proudly at her side. Daniel walked a few steps behind, giving her space but staying close enough to help if needed. The sun reflected off the water, soft and steady. What had begun as a moment of cruelty had turned into a chain reaction of courage, accountability, and unexpected connection. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that one person standing up can change everything, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate compassion. Your support helps keep these messages alive. And before we end, I have a special request. Comment the word "stand" below if you believe in standing up for those who cannot stand for themselves. Because sometimes, all it takes to stop cruelty is one steady voice, one courageous step forward, and one refusal to look away. And in a world that can feel harsh and indifferent, that kind of courage is nothing short of heroic.